welcome to the MLB Network Podcast presented by New Balance. We got now. I'm your host, Matt Vasgersian, and can't wait for the conversation with our guest on this episode of the podcast. He's a former World Series MVP, a three-time World Series champ. He's accomplished just about everything this game could afford: a player, a coach, and an executive. He's done it all. Dave Stewart joins us on the pod. Stu, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. How you been?
We're good. I can't wait to get into this with you because there are any one of a number of topics that we could do hours of content with you on. We're going to drill down on one particular accomplishment to have you revisit the no-hitter that you threw. And this is a special day, June 29th, 1990. That's the day that you kind of began the baseball news with a no-hitter. And, of course, Fernando Valenzuela on the other coast would end it with a no-hitter on the same day, first time that had happened in the modern history of the game. Before we get into the no-hitter, though, I want to talk to you specifically about the two starts you had made prior to the no-hitter. 143 pitches against the Tigers, 134 pitches against the White Sox, going 10 innings. You know, this was the kind of workload that you did back then. You and Mike Moore and Bob Welch, this is what you guys did. To today's fan or a younger player, this almost seems inhumane. Tell us about the workload and where you were in your season at that point.
You know, you brought up the Detroit Tiger game, and that one is a blur to me. The game against the Chicago White Sox, we were probably a little bit before, I believe. We're a little bit before midseason. I would say that would have been early July or late June is where we would have been at that point in time. And the White Sox game, actually Tony surprised me in that game. We had a great bullpen. Dennis Eckersley was on the back end with Rick Honeycutt and Gene Nelson as setup guy, and we had Todd Burns. I mean, we had a lot of options that we could go to in a baseball game. But in that 10-inning game, after 9 innings, I went up to the clubhouse, which I never do during the course of a baseball game if I'm still in it. I went up to the clubhouse. And Barry Weinberg, our trainer, I told Barry I'm probably done. Put ice on my shoulder and elbow, and was sitting up there for a pretty good while. In the bottom of the 9th, we ended up tying the game 1-1. And so I'm on ice, we tied up, and I get a call, and it's Tony, and he says, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in the clubhouse." He says, "You're still in the game." So I'm sitting in the clubhouse in my chair, ice on the shoulder, ice on the elbow, at least 15 minutes of ice, in my shorts, still got my stirrups on. And when he makes that call, I rush downstairs. And just in time to begin the inning, Pasqua was the first hitter I faced. End up going 3-0 count on him while my arm is thawing out. And then bring the count back to 3-2. And the 3-2 pitch, he hits for a home run opposite field.
I don't want to do this to you, Stu, but we got the video right here.
Yep.
Was that a forkball? What was that you threw him?
It was a fastball down the way. Usually 3-2 counts, you can expect you're going to get a fastball. And, I still got the reliever's mentality. Late in the game, if you're going to beat me, you got to beat me opposite field. I'm not going to give you anything to pull.
And he did. And then you I don't know if your line was to reporters or just to Tony in private, but it was something along the lines of "the White Sox can't hold my jock." Did that get across to the other clubhouse?
You got it right. No, I said it. During the game, I'm 10 innings into that game. I give it the home run to Pasqua. Jack McDowell and a couple of other, I think Steve Lyons was a part of the cackling crew. And I actually walked off the mound and was getting ready to go into their dugout and knock some heads, but didn't get that far. So when the game was over with, reporters, they got me right away, and they were asking me, and that's when I said to the reporters, I said, that team can't even hold my jock. And then I kind of thought about it. Carlton Fisk was on that team. I said, and so I thought about it, and I backtracked, and I said, well, maybe Carlton Fisk, but the rest of them, they can't even hold my jock.
So that's kind of that's the landscape when Stu would make his next start, and that would be the magical start we're talking about on June 29th of 1990. And by the way, that's when Dave was in the midst of this amazing run, 4 straight years of at least 20 wins, something that's never going to be done again in our sport. Promise you that. So we're going to take a break, and when we return, we're going to get inside of Stu's brain and talk about the actual no-hitter, the gem at Sky Dome. Yeah, that's what they called it back then, kids, as the MLB Network Podcast continues.
Worn by players like Michael Harris to meet the demand of elite ball players, the New Balance Fuel Cell 4040 V7 is a versatile cleat. The 4040 V7 is built for the athlete who needs responsiveness and ability to cut and run at their full speed. The model features a fuel cell foam underfoot and a synthetic and mesh upper to provide breathability, comfort, and a snug fit as you round the bases. The fuel cell midsole features nitrogen-infused foam specifically designed to propel athletes forward. Learn more and purchase the 4040 at newbalance.com.
All right, welcome back. We're with Dave Stewart talking on the 35th anniversary of his no-hitter at Sky Dome, getting to that game. We kind of set the story with the 2 Herculean efforts leading into this game in 1990, June 29th. So let's start things in the bottom of the first here, Stu. You have said since, and I think right after the game, that you didn't really feel it in the first. You walked Junior Felix. Tony Fernandez is next. A little wobbly in the first inning, but that wasn't uncommon for you. I remember back in those days when you were reeling off 20 straight wins, if you didn't get to Stu in the first inning, you weren't going to get to him. So talk about the start to that game.
You know, it started in the bullpen. What was different about this start versus other starts and other wobbly first innings is at least my bullpens coming into the game were, productive and good, and I was doing what I wanted to do. The bullpen before that game was one of the worst bullpens that I've thrown getting ready for a start. And Dave Duncan, he didn't have words for me for as bad as my bullpen went. And then when we were coming into the actual leaving the bullpen and coming to the bench, Dunk said to me, "Man, I'm not too sure how you're going to get out of that first inning with the stuff that you were throwing in the bullpen." And my misses were literally, if I was trying to throw to the outside corner, it was to the opposite side. Every breaking ball that I threw, I bounced or I hung it. I had no command or control of my forkball, which was my bread and butter pitch, especially against the Blue Jays, because Cito liked to stack that lineup with lefties. And so Dunk said he didn't know how I was going to get out of it. And, you said it. I walked the first 2 guys to start the game and somehow got out of that first inning. And things got a little better in the second inning. And by the time I got to the 4th inning, I had a pretty good clue that I was going to throw a really good baseball game.
Yeah, so how does the flip switch like that, Stu? You struck out the side in the second. It was a quick 3rd inning. How does that happen? How do you go from shaky for a half an hour to dominant with the snap of a finger?
You just have to keep pitching. You can't give up on any of your pitches. You have to keep pitching. In a case where you're shaky, you just have to make a pitch. You have to make pitches, at the right time. And so in those first 2 innings and even in the 3rd inning, I kept making pitches. And then when I got into that 3rd inning, things started to roll.
Not to take away from other no-hit accomplishments, but we're looking at this lineup here, Stu. Freddie McGriff, John Olerud, some big boy left-handed batters were in that lineup against you. And again, not to take away from somebody who no-hits a lesser-than team, but the Blue Jays were starting to put together the beginnings of a world championship lineup back then. That was no easy 27 outs.
Well, Cito may have been one of the first managers to start the platoon system, because you can face a lineup full of right-handers on a given day. He felt very, very strongly about putting those lefties in the lineup. Rance Mulliniks, I believe, became the third baseman instead of Kelly Gruber. They had the shortstop that they had. They had Manny Lee, I think, was playing second base at that time. And, I think the right-handers that stayed in the lineup were George Bell, and George continued to play left field or DH. But he made a point to put a lot of good left-handed hitters. A lot of people don't know the name Rance Mulliniks, but Rance Mulliniks was a very, very good hitter. John Olerud was a very good hitter. You saw Crime Dog in there, who's now a Hall of Famer. I mean, they had some guys that could swing the bats. And on top of that, you're pitching an artificial surface there in Toronto, which made it even that much tougher.
Didn't even think of that. Yeah, and I guess we're going back now to the previous starts, the workload. I mean, you were regularly 200-plus innings back in those days. And when we see that video and the way you were put together and still are put together, I know you're a martial arts guy. I remember just as a fan listening to you and Bob Welch talk about the hours that you would be on the stair stepper, right? Those aren't around anymore. The VersaClimber. Is conditioning the same, Stu, now for a starter the way it was in the 80s and 90s for you guys?
I'm now, doing some work with the A's organization, both at the major league level and in the development part of it. And no, the players do not, they train, but they train differently, I guess I should say. Welty, we had one VersaClimber. Welty went out and bought a second VersaClimber so that we could compete against each other on the VersaClimbers. And we did that as a pitching staff. We were street runners, Dennis Eckersley, myself, Welch, Mike Moore, Kurt Young. I mean, we ran 2-3 miles in between starts, along with our sprint work, our interval running. We weren't weightlifters, and weights are a big part of today's game. I've always asked the question in today's game, why would a guy spend 30 to 45 minutes throwing flat ground before he gets on the mound to do his bullpen work and only throw 25 pitches in a bullpen? So a lot of things are different about today's game we train differently. We were guys that were trained to pitch innings, and we were smart enough that when our stuff ran out, we could complete games just on how we thought about the game and how we thought in the late innings and how we were thinking in the late innings.
Getting back to the no-hitter, the game itself, you and I were visiting right before we started rolling camera here, and I was really surprised to hear that you had not watched the game back ever until very recently. So upon screening the no-hitter and watching it again some 35 years after it happened, what about it did you not remember? What about it did you perhaps remember incorrectly?
Well, what I did remember clearly was how the game began, and I clearly remembered how it ended. And I knew I had. It's crazy because in that last inning, I knew I was going to have to face Junior Felix, and Junior Felix was a power hitter as well as a speed guy. And I had made it up in my mind that I had already walked 2 guys in the first inning. And I think I finished the game with 3 total walks, with the third walk coming in the 9th inning. And that walk was Junior Felix. And I had made it up in my mind that I was not going to allow him to hit anything that would bounce off that carpet or give him anything good enough to hit out of the ballpark. I was going to make him hit the pitch that I wanted to make him hit. And I ended up walking him, and then the next hitter was Tony Fernandez, and ended up getting him to pop the ball up. And I'll tell you what else I remember about it is because Dave Henderson, who was a good friend and has now gone on, but I remember Dave Henderson going over to Ricky and telling him if the ball is hit in the air and is hit from, left center to right center. And he said, even in left field, he says, you just stay out of the way. I'm going to catch the ball. And he ended up catching the last out.
Oh, Hendu land. Oh, that's good. Hey, because we were talking about the ninth inning, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and watch it together. And we're going to do a little play-by-play together. Me as the fanboy that grew up in Oakland, you as the guy who grew up in Oakland who threw the no-hitter. Next on the MLB Network Podcast.
The farmer's dog thinks about your dog every day because their goal is to help them live a long, healthy life. Their food is developed by a team of board-certified vet nutritionists. Unlike most pet foods, the farmer's dog is made to human-grade standards. It's gently cooked without the ultra-processing and portioned for easy weight management. Because sure, good ingredients matter, but the best recipes call for so much more. Get 50% off your first box of the official pet food of Major League Baseball at thefarmersdog.com/MLB. That's thefarmersdog.com/MLB.
Welcome back. We're with Dave Stewart on the 35th anniversary of his no-hitter in Toronto. And Stu, before we get to the ninth, and we're going to go through all three at-bats there, I want to get to the two plate appearances in the eighth, one of which we've already talked about, Fred McGriff. That might have been the inhale moment, the only real scare that Toronto gave you. Walk us through this plate appearance and what you thought off the bat.
Well, you know, Fred is dangerous. He's dangerous. And once again, he's one of those guys, man, where you got to make the right pitch. That was a fork ball that didn't quite go down for me. I thought I was going to get a little bit more down with that pitch, and he got into it pretty good. Fortunately, he caught it, I think, a little bit off the end of the bat, which kept it in the ballpark. If he'd have caught a little bit more meat, that ball would have left the ballpark.
And then the next batter in the bottom of the eighth was John Olerud, who just would not go away. What was it, 8, 9 pitches this at-bat?
You know, Ole, as you know, is one of the few players that never spent a day in the minor leagues. And you can look at his swing. It's nice and compact. He's not trying to do too much. He's just trying to, make you throw pitches and throw the pitch that he wants you to eventually work you to. And as you can see, he just kept falling off pitch after pitch after pitch. And when they're doing that, they're just trying to get you to say, hey, all right, I give up, and you give in. But fortunately, I kept moving the ball around, up in the zone, down in the zone, mixed fastballs in, and eventually saved the real pitch for the last pitch, which was a forkball. And I delivered that pitch where I wanted to deliver it, which is down and out on the outside part of the plate, and I got good movement.
Unhittable right there. All right, so let's get to the main attraction here. Let's hit play on the bottom half of the ninth. We've already kind of spoken about it in a general sense. Manny Lee leading things off. You have not allowed a hit. Let's walk us through all this stuff here, Stu.
Manny Lee was comfortable for me. He was a guy I felt that I could get out, and I just needed to make pitches to him. Although he is a feisty little hitter, he's a good hitter, but he's one of those guys that I felt comfortable I was going to get out. Mix it up, but eventually, make a pitch. That pitch right there sets up everything for me. The high fastball inside. Now everything else is set up from this point on.
Is that Terry Steinbach back there or Ron Hasse? Who caught this?
That's Steiny. And I got to tell you, man, the good thing about having Steiny there, although we didn't have very many runners that day, is that he makes it really, really comfortable to think about nothing but execution when he puts the fingers down. I didn't wipe very much that day. If you watch the game, I just kind of followed. He called it great.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. How much shaking did you do? So now it's Mookie Wilson, one of Cito's lefties, veteran Mookie Wilson at this point of his career.
Mookie, once again, man, a feisty little hitter, but had a hold on the outer part of the plate and down. Mookie was a guy that if you got middle portion in or middle portion of plate, hit the ball very, very hard and hit the ball on line drive. And once again, another guy that ran well. So if he knocks something down the ground, it's going to be a high bouncer on that carpet, and he'll end up getting a base hit.
So now Junior Felix.
This is the guy that for me, I don't want him to hurt me. When I start this inning, I'm thinking this is the guy I don't want to hurt me. And you'll see that I pitched him very carefully in this at bat. This was not the guy that was going to hurt me because, as I said, he's got speed. So if he gets a chopper in the carpet, then he's going to beat that out. If you throw a pitch middle portion in, he has the strength to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So I was going to throw pitches to him this at bat that he was going to be doing what I want him to do. He was going to hit a pitch that I want him to hit because I'd walked the two guys earlier. I was thinking if I walk him, so what? I'll face the last guy, which I feel I'm comfortable that I can get him out.
Some of this too, Stu, is the home plate umpire all of a sudden becomes a part of the story in a no-hit bid. Who was behind the plate for your game?
I think that was Jerry. I think that was God. Was it Cooney or was it Drew Coble? I think it was Drew Coble.
Okay. And he was obviously good and fair, like what we're watching here. There was nothing too big. There was nothing out of line.
No, but I tell you what, he called one of the better games that I, quite frankly, in my career, ever had called. He was fair. I didn't get anything off the corners. I executed pitches, and I got what I was supposed to get. He didn't cheat me out.
So here we are. This is your last chance at it here, your last hitter to face, and it's Tony Fernandez. Henduland makes the catch.
Free swinger, man. Tony is a free swinger. And quite frankly, that pitch wasn't where I wanted to be, but I wanted to be a little higher in the zone. But he still ended up hitting that pitch and popping it up. As you saw, he swung at the first two pitches. He's a free swinger, and I felt comfortable I could get him out.
Man, I mean, just watching the congratulations here, your reaction, Stu, this is because you were so intense. This is more of an exhale than it is a celebration, right?
I got to tell you what, Matt, I was so tired. It's amazing the amount of brain power you use in a no-hitter because your focus, it started off with the first inning, and I used a lot of energy and gas in that first inning just to get out of the first inning because of the two walks. But then as the game goes on and you start to progress in the game and you start to feel yourself and feel comfortable and your body's working with your arm, now you're thinking every pitch. You're thinking every pitch, what pitch to throw. But then on top of that, the focus on executing the pitch, I think, is what takes all of the energy out of you because you're really maximizing every bit of brain power that you have to try to do your job properly and to execute the no-hitter.
So when Fernando threw his no-hitter later that night, all the headlines had to be revised. There was a sports daily called The National that was a national sports daily newspaper. I'm sure they had, the cover was printed with you and you only, and then Nando grabbed a little bit of your love there. It was reported that Fernando was watching your no-hitter in the clubhouse on the West Coast and might have even said, maybe somebody else is going to throw a no-hitter. What occasion did you have to visit with Fernando, if any, about this crazy day for the both of you?
Before he went out for his warm-up, they called the clubhouse and he congratulated me and he told me, keep watching my game because I'm going to do it too.
Wow.
That's right.
Oh, man.
That's right. He called to congratulate. We were teammates with the Dodgers for, my 81 season was his rookie season. I was traded in 83. We were teammates, and I considered us to be really, really close friends back then. And he did. He called me Cool Stu. In that way, he says, Cool Stu. I saw your game. Congratulations. He said, but you watch my game. I'm going to do the same thing.
That's fantastic. That's so good. A couple quick things here, Stu, before we let you go. You would go to Toronto and have some really nice contributions to 2 World Series championship teams with the Jays. Can't help but notice, after no-hitting the Jays as an A, you got that very Canadian polite round of applause. I would imagine that you were a pretty popular character there on your first day in a Jays uniform because of what you had done in that ballpark previously.
Yeah, it was, I had an opportunity as a free agent, I had an opportunity to pick between the two best teams in the league at that time, which were the Yankees and the Blue Jays. And I had some other offers to go. I mean, it was a tough offer. The Yankees had offered more money and more years. I ended up taking a 2-year deal with the Blue Jays because I felt that they had an opportunity to win. And so, talking with Pat Gillick, who was the biggest piece of me coming there, I felt real comfortable coming there. And from day one, starting in Dunedin spring training, the fans of Toronto were very welcoming.
One last question for you. We have a little bit of time for the We Got Now question presented by New Balance. I know you watch a lot of Major League Baseball currently in your advisory role with the Athletics. Give me 2 pitchers right now who are capable of throwing a no-hitter. If not on the same day, just 2 guys who you think have no-hit stuff.
Well, one is easy, is Hunter Green. And the other one is, I can't remember Brown's first name with the Houston Astros.
Hunter Brown.
Yep, those 2 guys are capable of throwing a no-hitter on any day that they take the mound with the stuff that they possess. And it's I mean, obviously it's velo, but it's just the assortment. Hunter Green is working on, a split. He's got nasty slider. Hunter Brown, his repertoire, and you're seeing. I remember Dusty Baker introducing him to me a couple of years ago and telling me about this kid. And since then, I've watched him and been a fan of his. And those 2 kids right now are the 2 no-brainers for me, and I'd be surprised if they don't throw 1 or 2 or even more through the course of their careers.
Oh, love that answer. Hunter Green's electric, and Hunter Brown could have pitched with you guys in Oakland in the late 80s. 4-seamers up around your neck all day. 2 great answers. Stu, thanks for the walk down memory lane to this, man. I can't believe it was 35 years ago. You're probably more in disbelief than any of us. We appreciate the memories, appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the MLB Network Podcast.
Matt, thank you so much, my man. It's always good to see you and always good to spend time with you.